So the Palestine Action group in Britain, in the UK, have gone to Trinity College at the University of Cambridge, which is actually where my dad studied, and they have gone to spray and slash a historic painting. The painting is of Lord Balfour, who, of course, was the Foreign Secretary in 1917, who drafted the Balfour Declaration, saying that Britain looked with favour upon the establishment or re-establishment of a Jewish state in what was then controlled by the British Mandate. So have a look at what they did. I mean, it's really just disgusting. And this, by the way, is completely priceless trait. By the way, just to note, Balfour went to Trinity College, which is why they have his portrait there. And he was also Prime Minister of Britain. But there's many things to say about this, and I'd like to know your thoughts as well. But one of the first things that comes to mind is actually that, technically speaking, it was not the Balfour Declaration, but the San Remo Conference, which happened in the 1920s, which was agreed by the League of Nations, which created the international legal framework for giving the right of the Jews to re-establish a homeland in the land. So that actually created the framework in international law. The other point to bear in mind is that if they do have a problem with the fact that it was Britain and France and the League of Nations that carved up this land that was meant for, they allocated to the Jews, then why don't they have an issue with all the other Arab states that were also carved up by the British and the French? But they don't. You should know, by the way, that so many like Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, these were carved up by the colonial powers. You should also know that I personally don't think we should base our right to the land simply on international law, even though Israel has a very strong case for that. But you should also know that what was known as Palestine, that the League of Nations and the British carved up as Palestine, was both what is now Israel and also Jordan. And then they gave that away. So it's like around 75% of the land to Jordan. And that, many people have argued, is the Palestinian state already there. And they allocated the whole land, including what is referred to as the West Bank, but what others refer to as Judea and Samaria, which is the more historically accurate term. All of that was allocated for a future Jewish land. And in some ways, I'm grateful that these protesters have brought up this point about Balfour, because it allows us to look back into history to realise and appreciate that there was never a sovereign state called Palestine. It was always just conquered by various empires and peoples, and there were always Jews living there. And the last sovereign state that existed there prior to 48 was the Jewish state 2,000 years ago, the Jewish kingdom of Israel and Judah. And having said all this, I do think that while international law, as I say, does justify the state of Israel, does support the state of Israel, we should be looking and speaking in a different tone when it comes to defending Israel's right to land. Because on some level, even though they do have complete double standards and they don't care about other countries that were carved up by these same powers and people, which really shows that it's just about hostility to Jews, but on some level, I think we should also remind the world that not just through international law, but historically, in terms of indigeneity, this is our homeland. But even more important than that, I think we need to use the religious argument. It's actually the one argument, the one tone that our neighbours in that region respect, which is that God, the creator of the universe, assigned this land to the Jewish people. Even the Quran says so. And that has to be the key argument we use. Yes, we can say international law and all such things are part of the picture, but it's not the primary argument, I don't think. But in terms of the way they've acted, obviously this is just completely disgraceful. What Balfour did was a good thing. He was simply recognising the truth and recognising the justice in the cause of restoring the Jewish people to their land. And I'd welcome your thoughts on what you think should be, the penalty for this, and just more generally on this particular incident. But I do think that as a Jewish community and as a Zionist community, we should start including the religious argument as well, if not as our primary argument, because this is what our tradition and our history and our heritage tells us is the argument that we should be articulating to the world. I'm Ollie Annisfeld and you're watching JTV.